one of those three outcomes. So to ensure that every school establishes and maintains an active and high functioning ILT. So that's an instructional leadership team. And that's where the principal, school social worker, sometimes a coach, a couple of key teachers will get together. After school, they will have a regular meetings to look at data and look at the outcomes and achievement of the school system, of their school, I should say. They do that sometimes with the support of the district office. Sometimes we'll have someone, Kara Wanzer, push in and help people to really unpack complicated data sets. And then we'll have some of our curriculum folks also push in, and supervisors, to talk about content-specific strategies that will support a school's mission of increasing their academic achievement. We will implement a school improvement plan review process to provide feedback on systems, goals, and strategies. So similar to the way that Cabinet engaged in a strategic planning process, we asked the schools, individual schools, to develop school improvement plans. And in those plans, they work to identify the biggest blockages for academic achievement in their building, and they strategize around specific learner-centered problems of practice. So what is it that is blocking achievement in grade 3 in my school, because I'm seeing that my grade 3 is not as strong as another school's, or it's not where I want it to be, or we haven't made as much growth in this area. And so that's where we really dive in with a lens to examine practices, to examine assessment, to examine student work, and then to look at ways that we can create mini action plans around improvement in those areas. So those are important. And our chiefs right now are heavily involved in reviewing school improvement plans and providing feedback and really pushing on that academic achievement piece to make sure that we are centering on grade level learning and that we're advancing all of our learners. So we're engaging principals in professional learning, utilizing the PLC process. So again, these are the opportunities that we have as peers to work together to drive that achievement. And again, some of these overlap. Developing a systemic process to inform professional development offerings with multi-level feedback for our stakeholders. So when we provide professional development, excuse me, I need to take a sip. When we provide professional development, we always make sure that we evaluate that to make sure that it met the needs of the teachers, and that our presenters are given their absolute best when they're delivering that professional development. And so we use that for self-improvement and to push on our own internal processes for creating excellence. To evaluate the amount of professional learning available at DPS. So every year we are always looking at the calendar. We spend a lot of time on the calendar. We're always looking for ways to maximize that calendar. And so as a strategy to achieving all of our goals and outcomes, we will constantly look at the calendar, meeting time, how we organize ourselves during the school day as well, to make sure that we're utilizing every opportunity to look at data and to look at the achievement of our students. Let's see, let me leave off here. The last couple ones, providing opportunities for administrators to engage in professional learning communities. We talked a lot about that, and solving problems of practice. Again, right now, as our principals are working on developing their school improvement plans, that is happening as we speak. Principals will lead community building efforts through restorative practices. So as we address student behavior and even adult behavior in real time, that we're employing some high leverage strategies to build relationship and to make sure that we're moving our schools and our students in the right direction. Review and revise as necessary all curriculum to ensure is comprehensive and standards-based. There's a strong push to move everything just to highlight our standards in our work, and so that content and conversations is not just topical in nature or theme-based, but it's grounded in standards. And those standards are very specific, that delineate what grade level achievement looks like when you reach it. And then our conversations must all aim in that direction. So it's really focusing on that and working with teachers slowly over time to build up their expertise in this and to do that with our students as well. And then the last one is to monitor, provide feedback, and provide teacher admin training on explicit structured phonics in instruction K-3. Perhaps no more important level in our school district. K-12 can be found in our elementary school. We really have tried hard over the last couple of years to deploy more resources to K-3, but particularly around explicit structured phonics. So that our foundation coming up out of the middle school is as strong, and our students are used to rigor. And also we're developing readers in early elementary school so that they can begin to learn content and access more knowledge about the world around them. So that pretty much gives you a little bit of an understanding about that. I hope that was a little bit more digestible this time around, and certainly can field some questions at the end on any of these items.
Thanks,
Teresa.
Kara.
Yeah, I did see a little question from Teresa. Teresa, the curriculum standards are Connecticut state standards and national standards, and I can certainly make those links available. As Mr. Seelig mentioned before, the website is we have a new website, and those will be able to, we'll post those for our families so that all can see.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so talent acquisition is mine, and a lot of what's on this slide are things that are not new to all of you. They're things that we've been talking about, that I've been talking with you about for quite some time now. So I'm just going to pick a couple of kind of higher leverage items on this slide. And of course, I'm always available to talk with you. I know many of you volunteer to participate in the process, so I'm eager to continue to share the mission and the vision for recruiting. There's two real principal concepts here. One is on recruitment and one is on retention. None of the things that Kara has talked about can happen if we don't recruit or retain our teaching force. And this year has been particularly robust in our recruitment and also in our retention of our existing staff. And the overarching concept here is many of you have heard us talk about it's important for students to see themselves in their teachers and their administrators. And one really easy way to do that and clear way to do that is to try to bring in teachers of color who reflect the students that they're teaching. And because we have a workforce of over 1,000 teachers, it's almost unobtainable for us to talk about having a demographic of teachers who precisely reflect the demographics of our students. And yet it's an aspiration that we have always as we're looking to bring in the biggest, best, brightest teachers that we can find to put through all of these wonderful training programs and things that we do. So what are the things that we're focusing on this year? And you've seen in the goals and in the strategic planning that we are constantly looking to do a couple of things in recruitment. One is to find ways to unearth and locate diverse applicants, whether it's economically diverse, whether it's culturally or ethnically diverse. We're always looking for a diverse workforce. And so we're constantly thinking about what are the ways we can do that. One way is to continue to build the pipeline programs that we've worked on. You've heard us talk about the WestCon teacher pipeline, minority hiring pipeline, the NYU pipeline that we're building. So we're constantly looking at ways to attract and lure young students, students at Danbury High School or even the middle school, to develop an interest in teaching, and then to work with some of these partners that we've identified to get them trained to be the best they can be, and then to bring them into the district. So it's sort of that homegrown model, if you will. That's something that we'll continue to focus on this year, is using that as a really robust way to locate a diverse workforce. We're looking this year also at our paraeducator group, and are there folks in there that have got some experience, maybe some school credits that we can help them leverage into becoming teachers and defining a career path that they may not have thought about before. The other piece that we'll focus on this year is we've put together a team to go to our RESC, who's running a coaching series. It's called the Coaching Series to Facilitate District Creation of a Plan to Increase Educator Diversity. The State Department of Education has made it a priority that districts craft a plan for hiring that reflects development of a diverse workforce. And we are embracing that idea. And I've pulled together a team of folks to start looking at our hiring process. Do we have diversity of folks who are interviewing, who are screening? What are we asking candidates in their applications, in their interviews, in their participation in our process? And are we having a really good dialogue about what we see about the qualities of those candidates? And those of you who've served on interview committees for higher level administrator positions know that we spend a lot of time debriefing to see what you've seen, who have you seen, who would you like to see in a different role. And so this coaching series that the RESC is putting on that we're going to participate in is just going to continue to hold the mirror up for us to our practices so that we can go through this year serving the goal that's in the superintendent's goal of creating a plan for recruitment. Another piece of that, which you'll hear a lot about this year, is the retention effort. I will again bring to you, I think it's scheduled for November, a look at our aggregated data on hiring, but also you will see over the course of the year our celebration, our continued celebration of those folks that we've already invested in, that we want very much to stay here in the district. And what are we doing for them? Are we celebrating their accomplishments? You're seeing Teacher of the Year, you're seeing Spotlight Your School, you're seeing a more vigorous social media presence so that we can celebrate the accomplishments of the really incredible teaching staff and support staff that we have in the district. So to sum up, it really is a two-pronged attack this year. One big focus is meeting the State Department of Education urging that we really focus on our practices and that we work on recruitment. But also the other is our own kind of home developed goal of really celebrating who we have in our constant striving to keep them here in the district and keep them working with our kids. So you'll see both of those things out of my department this year. Thank you.
And next up is school climate. You'll see the overarching goal for school climate is to promote a safe and supportive learning environment that nurtures the social emotional growth and civic responsibilities for all students, families, and staff. So there's a bunch of different ways that we do that, but I'm going to focus on a couple high leverage key ways in which the district is promoting social emotional well-being for our students and families, as well as our staff in the school environment. The first is really to focus on providing and carving out time for social emotional learning to occur during our school day. It is something that was emphasized very, very heavily throughout the pandemic as a need for students and for staff and families as well. And this has continued in our work since returning to the school environment. For example, at the elementary level, it's very common to see things like morning meetings where teachers are doing check-ins to build culture, climate, and community within their classrooms. They're also providing ways to connect reading and writing activities to how different characters are feeling and putting it back in with students to make connections to themselves. At the middle and high school level, we have time within the schedule to do, whether it's flex or an advisory fashion, to connect students in a larger environment with teachers so that they always have a go-to adult in the school environment. And at that level, we're also pushing out content that is developmentally appropriate about, for example, transitioning into middle school, maybe cyber awareness and being aware of who you're speaking to online, all those types of things that are developmentally appropriate based on age level in an effort to build a positive school climate, culture, and community. The second high leverage thing that we're doing is really looking at ways that we can create safe schools. And there's really a two-pronged approach there. How we work within the infrastructure of the building. So how we make sure that we have increased our cameras, our security, the locations of our main entrance, and making sure that it's a double check-in before people can get into the building. The way we practice our safety and security drills so that we're aware of what to do in the event of a true emergency. Those are all kind of the procedural operational things that we do on the school safety and climate. And then the other piece is doing things like the Sandy Hook Promise Start with Hello program, where we're teaching students within the school environment and empowering them that if something doesn't feel right, talk to a trusted adult, report that information. We've also launched another security system where we're looking at things that students are searching online. So if a student searches a concerning topic or a developmentally inappropriate topic for their age or grade level, that we're able to follow up, inform parents, have conversations about kids to keep them safe. So it's, again, working on kind of the building structure as well as the things that we empower kids to do to take control of their environment. And then I think most importantly, kids need to learn when they make mistakes that we're helping them to understand why that wasn't the best choice, what is a better option, and really engaging parents and community members, if appropriate, in helping to provide support for those students. And then the last kind of major high leverage strategy is to talk about continuing to resource our infrastructure development so that we can continue to have schools that are responsive to our students. As our student population grows, we need more space, and we need to make sure that those spaces are adequate. And then also providing that restorative practices, which again is what I said before, making sure that we're debriefing with students, that we're helping them to repair any relationship damage that they broke. Maybe it's with a teacher or a peer, and learn from it and move forward in a positive way. Thank you.
Okay, meaningful collaboration is up next. So I just want to talk a little bit about the sort of larger ethos that goes behind this. So I recently read a statistic that less than 10% of a child's life by the time they reach 18 is actually spent in school. When you add in all the vacation and the summer breaks and the holidays and just, a bell schedule of 8 to 2 or 8 to 3, that only comes up to about 10% of a childhood. So if we can't find better ways to sort of reach into that 90%, it really makes the job of a school that much harder and really limits our ability to be effective. So in the last few years, there's been an incredible infrastructure that's been built here in Danbury, and we're really sharpening now and sharpening the point on just how this works and what we know are going to be some of the most high leverage strategies. So one of the things that the three big goals we have here is, work collaboratively with schools, business, and community organizations to strengthen meaningful engagement through joint decision making. This really views the sort of, the relationship between a parent and a school as just sort of a critical handshake. And when everybody's sort of engaged and everybody understands what their sort of role and responsibility is, and even the little things that you can do, you really do get a tremendous impact on the life of the child, but also on the ability of that kid to achieve in school. The second star here is build and enhance the capacity of families and educators to support student learning. And the third is develop effective methods of communication with parents, staff, and students. So there's a few really high leverage action steps here that I'll talk about. The first is we're going to be creating an advisory council to maintain and nurture community partnerships that includes both the private and nonprofit sectors. So, when you think about all the, the benefits of having a community like Danbury, where we have good businesses, we have a lot of nonprofit organizations, we have, access to, I just lost you. Did you guys lose me? There we are. When you think about a community that has just a lot of assets available to it, you've got to figure out ways to leverage those. So having things like advisory boards where you bring these people in and they can tell you about the different benefits that they can bring to your school. These are really important partnerships to have. Identify process and organizational conditions that impact school family partnerships at the district and school level. We're going to be employing the Connecticut framework for family school partnerships district-wide. So this is Karen Mapp's strategies that she's put together this framework. It's a framework just about what are the ideal conditions for community partnerships and what do those look like. And one of the highest leverage things you can do for these partnerships is to have buy-in of a superintendent and buy-in of a strategic plan, which is really why this is such an important piece of the strategic plan. Incorporate student, staff, and community feedback to inform school policies, budget, and activities. We started doing this last year with the budget, and we're going to keep doing it in our community relations committee. Identify and deploy best practices for family and school partnerships. We're going to continue to review our current communication methods and recommend ongoing improvements for engaging and communicating with our families. Parent Square has been a tremendous boon to this effort, but we're only in our infancy of figuring out how to do this. We now have a number of two-way mechanisms that we're building. We've started putting out more newsletters with Kevin. There's social media now that we're starting to engage on, and of course the new website will provide a whole host of new opportunities as well. We're building, and it's large pieces of this have already been built, but we're continuing to build and sustain a vibrant parent university that engages parents and families in supporting their children's learning. Ann Mead's office in family and community engagement has done tremendous work just engaging families. And I know several board members have been to some of these events where just on a Tuesday night, you get 50 families at these events who just want to know better reading strategies. They want to know better ways to communicate with their children about either social emotional issues or just, challenges that they're having in their own lives. And the other piece of this too is just building out the FACE Center that has a central registration center in it. So, we really now have with this registration an opportunity to have just a physical place where parents and families can come. They can get help, they can connect with resources, and just really, engage with the school district. It's a single point of contact, and they're able to come in and meet somebody and who speaks Spanish or speak Portuguese, who will speak English, and help them engage with the school and figure out exactly what they need to know to help their child. So that's meaningful collaboration.
Thank you, Mike. John?
Yeah, thank you. So resource allocation, and you'll see 4 goals there, but 2 of them are, I find, much more important or timely than the others, and that's the second and the third one. They're both very, there's a common thread back to the meaningful collaboration goals in both of those. You heard Mike mention working with businesses for joint decision making and building capacity, especially for families to support schools. But the second and third one there, the second one is to develop an advocacy to leverage those voices. That's what we're going to need in the next 12 months for sure. And over on the action steps, in the middle there, we have that we'll partner with the citywide PTO, the city council, to build advocacy, again, that word, among key stakeholder groups, because we're going to need them to help us carry our budget message for sure. And it's also in the third goal there, the partnerships with the city in the face of the expiring relief grants. And the second to the last action step to the right, to develop a strategy to close the budget deficit, that is the expiring relief grants. We've started to talk about getting we have an advisory committee that's already begun to meet that will give us some ideas there. And also to fund the Career Academy. That's a very important step we have to take. You heard at the Finance Committee, you heard about the pressures that we're starting to see on our high school budget, the different things we have to do, whether it's adding more staff, adding more buses, adding more safety advocates, and so on. It's another way of saying we really need the Cardis campus. So they're connected. Those are the two of the bigger goals, and they're right here in the next couple months. The other goals, things that we really should be doing all the time, doing a better job. There's always ways to do things better. We call that finding efficiencies, but that's doing it cheaper with less people or faster with the computer maybe. And then as we talked about at sites and facilities last week, we need projections for building maintenance and expansions. So we have some action steps to go with those. So I'll leave it at that, given the time, and thank you very much.
So those are the 6 goals and respective strategies that the cabinet just walked you through. Different from what we had shared previously, were the action steps that were in those boxes. And so that was the detail that you heard this evening. So I know that I see a couple of questions in the roadmap Q&A document that was in the chat. I want to make sure I get to those questions, but I also wanted to mention previously there were requests to associate budgets with the strategic plan itself. And so once we have approval, I would like to also go through that exercise with my team. I would say the vast majority of the strategies that the team shared with you this evening just require strategic implementation. But there are some things like strategic planning that will require budgeting. Resource allocation necessarily doesn't require monies, but it does require strategic implementation. Curriculum implementation in terms of the new reading program, as an example, require a significant investment. And so I just want to make the board aware that some of these things do have costs associated with them. And so some of these things in terms of implementation could be budget dependent. And so with that, I will open a door. I just want to thank again, everyone, for hearing the team and I out on these action steps. Lastly, I also want to share a lot of these things, although in the strategic plan, in terms of things we would like to do, some of these things are off the ground already, just because it's part of our typical work and what we've identified as kind of best practice. But in any district, you want to make sure that you have a plan so that you can continue to assess, reassess, and reevaluate. And it's best when those plans are memorialized to support growth and development of a district. And so with that, I'd like to turn it back to our board chair and any question the board might have.
Aside from the questions on the document, are there any questions? Teresa.
Schools are subject to testing. I didn't see anything about raising test scores. Is that what you were referring to in the grades 3, 5, 8, and 12 areas based on test scores to be your assessments based on the test scores at those levels?
Yes, so we kind of benchmark, if you will, in those grade levels. Those are tested areas, tested grade levels per se. We do spend a little more time looking at data around the areas that are tested. When it comes to setting those benchmarks, we do that through our accountability index with the state of Connecticut in the form of ESSA targets. And so the state holds us accountable in meeting those targets. And so there's like almost a whole nother document and process around that, that kind of parallels this work. And so we think of the accountability index and our growth targets that we set forth in there. This strategic plan helps us to achieve in the direction of those targets that are set with the state. And so on a yearly basis, Teresa, we have a testing report. There's usually about 2. Probably have one coming up soon. We'll have to look at the calendar, but we go over all of those targets. We go over all of our performance, how we are doing in terms of both growth and proficiency, and then talk about kind of the work that we have going on. But certainly this strategic plan is the roadmap to get us to the growth and proficiency that we're holding ourselves accountable for in that other plan.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So October 26th, we'll see some of that.
Yes.
Great.
quick question. How are we handling parents that may be opposed to teaching, um, you know, sexual content or having pronouns used in the classroom? Are we specifically only, like, I'm not sure if we're even, I believe, did we send out a survey for pronouns, questioning whether or not our students or our parents are on board with that? And if they're not, how are we handling that if we are currently or plan to in the future? Is a parent allowed to opt out? Does, know, how does all that kind of come into play when it's clearly out there, but I really don't hear too much about how we ourselves are handling that issue or these questions or concerns?
We haven't had much, Michelle, here, but in that regard. Um, we haven't had a lot of controversy. We haven't had a lot of approach about it particularly. Um,
Did we send out a survey last year? Because I did hear concerns at an event that their child had received a survey and that the parent was not aware of it. Is that something that we actually did as a district? Did we send out any kind of a survey on that, or anybody? Nobody's having that discussion?
If I could just interject, I think one of the things just to add is regarding the opt-out for certain curriculum, such as like health and sex education, there is an opt-out for parents. So there is a notification that the parent can opt out if they do not want their child participating in that unit. Similarly, a unit like suicide awareness, there is an opt-out for that. I'm not certain what survey you're referring to, but there is a drug and alcohol survey that we have done with high school and eighth grade students. And there is also an opt-out for that. And that is done in partnership with MCCA through a grant funding to survey high school youth on their awareness and potential use of any substances. But again, there is an opt-out for parents that do not wish to have their child engage in that survey.
So currently in any of the other classes that we would have, let's say English, social studies, if a teacher felt that pronouns were something that was important to them or that they feel should be extended in their class, is that something that we would support, or is it strictly going to be in certain classes like health or, like, so I'm just wondering, because I have heard in other school districts or whatever the case is, that there is kind of certain classes where a parent wasn't aware that perhaps in math class or in English class, the use of pronouns would be used. I'm just wondering, what is our position as a district, as our school in Danbury Public Schools?
Yeah, Michelle, we haven't, it has not come up in formally in any way here. I think you can certainly see some folks prefer or will list their pronouns on a Zoom, right? When you log in, so perhaps it could be in an email in their way that they signal, but we have no policy and no restrictions, no support in either way to either ask students to do this or ask teachers to do this or to not do this. So there are no students are not asked to do that by any sort of a formal process here in Danbury. It's not part of our policy.
And there's not anything that we currently are looking into as part of the whole development of, our inner workings.
No,
I'm just asking because I get this a lot.
Yeah.
So I'm surprised that it hasn't come up.
I have not had one instance where that has come up, where where that was an issue, or a parent felt it was an issue, or a student felt it was an issue, at least to me, formally. So, again, we don't have a policy. It doesn't mean that individual teachers or individual students don't display that or don't choose to put that forward and identify a certain way or put that out to their peers, but we don't support nor deny nor anything. We're kind of neutral in that area right now.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Anyone else have any questions? Teresa?
How many surveys went out total, and what is the percentage of that total is the response?
638.
Hi, Teresa. Yeah, I can
Yes.
respond to that. Yeah, so we put it out to our entire Parent Square list. So it was over 17,000 people it went to. It's a Google form, so it only tracks it when the form's been completed. My experience in distributing surveys is that a lot of people will start a survey and then get distracted or get bored or just not take the time to finish it. It turns out we had 683 respondents. That's just below 5% if we're using the 17,000 number.
That's what I wanted to know. Thank you. So that's pretty low. That's not the greatest.
Yeah, we sent out, so it went out the 23rd, and then we sent out 2 rounds of reminders that week it was open. Each one you get like a little pulse of people that respond to it, but you know, surveys aren't the most exciting thing to fill out.
Quite extensive, though. You reached out to 17,000. That is
Yeah,
commendable.
it was everybody we had in
Yeah.
our Parent Square, it all went out. So
Yeah, and also getting a good response and getting a good idea of what the people who did respond liked. So that was good. Thank you.
We do have another agenda item to get to. Is there anything else from board members before we move on? Okay, seeing none. Kevin, are you all set?
Yes, and Board Chair Chaleski, if it is okay with you and the board, we can leave the roadmap Q&A for the Board of Ed questions available for everyone, and we can push it out via email as well, because many folks may not take the time to look at it. And so if now that you've had some time to see the action steps side by side with the goals and the strategies that we had in the previous board documents, the board might have more questions. And so I just invite everyone to take some time to include them, and the team and I can answer them throughout the week and be better prepared during the board meeting to make sure we can answer your questions fully in public in the event there are follow-up questions.
and just a reminder, in the email I sent out this afternoon, there was a PDF version, a booklet version in portrait that you all received of the goals. It didn't have all the survey information in it, but it was certainly the strategic plan and the action steps. So you should all have that in your email.
Great. Thank you. That's helpful. So board members, if you can just come prepared to our next meeting and review and ask questions prior to, that would be great.
And we will resend with the questions in the event so that they're side by side, so we don't have to go searching for them.
Okay.
But thanks again for being available for the presentation this evening, and look forward to any additional feedback the board might have next week.
Great. With that, we are going to go into executive session, and I'll ask for a motion. But before I do that, we have a separate link. Once right? Okay. And then are we coming back to public session via the original link?
Will it be still open, Kevin? Mike?
I think it will still be open. If it's not, I can work with Kara P to make sure it is.
Okay.
So let's just plan to come right back to the strategic plan link.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Okay.
On the other
So-
side.
I will entertain a motion that the Board of Education convene an executive session to present the tentative agreement with the National Education Association, NEA Danbury, with possible action in public session.
So moved.
Moved by Kate, seconded by Al. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. We are now in executive session. See you on the flip side. entertain a motion that the Board of Education ratify the agreement with the National Education Association, NEA Danbury, for the period July 1, 2023 to June 30th, 2026, as presented. Gladys, would you like to make that motion? Moved by Gladys. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Kate. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? It's unanimous, motion carries.
Okay.
I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Moved by Al. Seconded by,
I'll second.
yeah,
I second.
Julie,
Second by Julie?
Yeah.
seconded by
Okay.
Julie. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.